Welcome. I am your narrator, the Conscious Chronicle, and in today's episode, we journey into one of the most extraordinary near-death experiences ever shared. This is Betty Guadagno's near-death experience. I've taken your comments on board. This experience has not been rewritten, so sit back, relax, and immerse yourself in this narration, told entirely in Betty Guadagno's own words. My mum was Jewish, my dad was Catholic, but they were more agnostic, basically atheist. Zero spiritual awareness. I'd never heard of a spiritual awakening, never heard of a near-death experience, never heard of a chakra. Nothing. I had heard of Jesus, obviously, and stories from the Bible, but it was like, yeah, whatever. I thought when you died, that was it. You just turned into dirt. Game over. And honestly, it was easier to believe that. I had such a traumatic childhood. So many awful things happened to me. If I believed in God, then I'd have to believe that God allowed those things to happen. So instead, I just hid from God. It felt safer. My life before my experience was traumatizing. That's the best word for it. I grew up in a family filled with addiction, poverty, sexual trauma, all the chaos that comes with a life like that. And I thought it was normal. I really did. I thought it was normal to steal your groceries. I thought it was normal to get eviction notices on your door and move every year. I thought it was normal to run a big orange extension cord from your apartment to the building next door, just to keep the lights on. That was just life to me. It was what I saw around me. So I thought it was normal. I didn't realize my life was abnormal until much later. But I did know my parents were struggling. Every time they smoked something, took a drink, or popped a pill, everything just turned off. It was like nothing was wrong anymore. And I made these mental notes as a little kid. As soon as I can get my hands on whatever that is, that's what I'm gonna do. I was 35 when I had my near-death experience. I watched addiction take hold of my parents and destroy them. In 2007, during the height of the OxyContin epidemic, they were being prescribed over 1,000 pills each, every month, and somehow they were always running out. The lights were shut off, the gas was shut off, and they were facing yet another eviction. That's when they made the decision to end their suffering. The only way they knew how to stop using was to do what everyone else in our family had done: die. In 2007, my parents intentionally overdosed. They ended their lives together. I was 23. My sister was 18. We found them. They'd left notes scribbled on a kitchen magnet pad that just said, "Take care of each other." Like a 23-year-old and an 18-year-old would know how to do that. That's when my addiction stepped in. And it didn't just become my parent. It became my guiding star, my higher power. I didn't have space for God, because addiction, was my God. I left everything behind. I abandoned my sister, moved across the country. I said I couldn't deal, and I made a decision. I was done being the victim. I didn't even know there were other roles to play. I thought it was victim or perpetrator. So I chose to be the abuser. I hurt people, intentionally, maliciously. I traumatized others because I wanted them to hurt as badly as I did. If someone had told me back then that I chose my life, I would have punched them in the face. Lights out, it would have been bad. But today, I know I chose this path because honestly, heaven is boring. And my soul, she's like a Spanish novella scriptwriter. She said, let's do it all while we can. Every possible storyline you can think of has happened in my life. The lesson of addiction is brutal, but it comes with a dual experience, recovery. Some souls never get to experience both, like my parents. So now I heal, not just for me, but for them, for the generations before me, for family lines I'll never meet or know. This healing, it's not just mine. It's for the collective. And holding on to that truth, that's what keeps me going. Because if I thought this was all just for me, I might give up. The first part was a life review. I was a traumatized person who intentionally traumatized others. So, my life review was not nice. It was brutal, agonizing. I started to feel the pain I'd inflicted on others, from their point of view, not just the physical things, lying, stealing, hitting people, but the emotional pain. It felt like I had torn pieces of their soul apart. Then it expanded. It became a collective life review. I started experiencing things I had never lived in this lifetime. Childbirth, the death of a child. I've never had children, but I felt it deeply. Some of it, I now believe, were past lives. Some were from people in my family. When I felt the death of a child, I was in my aunt's awareness. My cousin had died. I felt her pain. I saw her face. I was her. Then I experienced my parents' suicide, from both their point of view and mine as a grieving daughter. From their view, the pain was indescribable. Like every cell in my body was covered in spikes, static, and cement. I was being shredded. That's when I thought, I must be dead. I was seeing dead people, and I thought, this sucks. This is not what I expected. At the time, I didn't even call it a life review. I used to just say, I saw my parents, so I knew I was dead. But the emotions, it was every emotion a human can feel, and it was all happening at once. I now understand I was having a spontaneous Kundalini awakening, a life force of energy exploding through me. It wasn't just my life. It was every life, a unity experience. My soul was traveling up and down the scale of consciousness, grief, anger, betrayal, into acceptance, love. Back and forth rapid fire, like being thrown into a washing machine. Brutal. That's when I started to travel into the light, and I welcomed it. After the life review, this was a huge relief. Everyone's experience is unique. Sure, there are common things, life reviews, tunnels of light, but it's not one size fits all. Mine had to shake me up first, and then I entered the light. When I got there, everything looked like a video game. Maybe because of the generation I was born in, or maybe we're in a simulation. I ended up on what felt like the deck of a spaceship. Thousands of souls around me. It reminded me of the Gravitron ride from Chronicles, the one that spins really fast. I came out of the wall, and in the center was this commander. It felt like an army commander, and all these souls were gathered around. You could call that being Christ, Krishna, Buddha, I don't know. But there was this higher consciousness, loving, accepting, secure. Everyone was so pumped, so excited. our commander told us we were the special volunteers, that we had chosen to jump into Earth during the transformation of consciousness. The energy was electric, and I didn't understand all of it, but I knew I was part of it. I felt totally connected. Then, my awareness shifted again, and I found myself in front of this really crappy plastic banquet table. Nothing special, but behind it were beings. I didn't need to ask who they were. I just knew they were in charge. They were flipping through this huge book. Looking at me, then the book. They said, "It's really nice to see you. You're not meant to stay. You're only here for information." And I was like, "You're not talking to me, right?" Because this place felt amazing. I didn't want to leave, but they kept flipping pages. "You're here for information." Then suddenly I was with a man. He looked like an NPC from a video game. Plaid blazer, fedora, pushing a giant empty grocery cart. He said, "Okay, let's pick your life." And suddenly, we were in this grocery store, like supermarket sweep. Lining the walls were these big cereal boxes. Each box was a life experience. My soul was like, "Let's do it. We're going to Earth. Great awakening. Transformation of consciousness. Let's go." I just started grabbing everything. My family line was already decided. There were specific experiences I needed to have. I wasn't a fresh soul. I came in with intention. I was seeing my pre-birth planning. It was all laid out. And yes, my pre-birth experience involved cereal boxes, which is hilarious. Because I ate so much cereal as a kid, I began grabbing these cereal boxes, symbolic of different life experiences. And I was grabbing so many, way more than any one soul should take on in a lifetime. Addiction, poverty, deep emotional trauma. I wanted the full experience. There's one experience I always share, one that stood out the most. I understood in that space that I had chosen one of my most difficult early life challenges. I pulled that box, and with it came a soul, someone I would have a painful experience with. And in that moment, I saw the bigger picture. In a previous life, I had played a very different role with that same soul. There was deep karmic exchange, not for punishment, but for growth balance, healing. I saw that we loved each other on a soul level, that we had agreed to play these painful roles for each other's evolution. In this life, he'd be the antagonist. He'd cause great pain, but also awaken something in me, something deeper. And I saw it wasn't just about me. My healing would ripple out into the collective. By healing myself, I'd help heal others with the same wounds. That realization shattered my victim mentality. It cracked something heavy wide open. I wasn't a victim. I was a divine co-creator. I had co-authored my life with the divine for healing and purpose. Then I was back in front of the beings at the table. Overwhelmed with gratitude, I dropped to my knees. Thank you. Thank you for this understanding. But Earth? Still a mess. I said, I'm not going back. I'm staying right here, watching the great awakening from up here, in my PJs, eating popcorn. And they were like, no, girl, you're going back. I transformed into a little child, throwing a full-on spiritual tantrum. You can't make me go back, I cried. You never tell us what Earth is really like. And they just smiled and said, you say that every time you come home, every single time. They told me, you're not going back as punishment. You've trained for lifetimes for this. This is your mission. This is the life you've been preparing for. We're not letting you miss it. Every soul here came for the transformation of consciousness. And I said, but I can't go back into her. I saw my body on the bathroom floor, lifeless, depleted. She's a mess. She's broken. She needs too much healing. I can't go back into that. They said gently, okay, you don't have to go back into her. We'll show you the baby you'd be born into instead, because you're going back. Then my life cart, my grocery cart of experiences, was pushed aside, and like a video game character screen, a little baby avatar appeared. Rotating slowly, her stats popped up. Gender, ethnicity, birthplace, parents, purpose, challenges. A whole new blueprint. And her life was even harder than the one I'd just lived. I said, I can't start from zero. If those are my only options, go back into her or start over, then fine, I'll go back into that body. The beings were so kind, so loving. They said, the first part of your life was boot camp. Nobody likes boot camp. It's hard. But the second part, that's your mission. You'll have support. You'll meet your soulmates, your mentors, your community. Everything will change. You can't imagine how beautiful it's going to be. Just trust us. Back in my awareness, back in my body, I sat up slowly, dazed, shook my head. Wow, I was so high. I thought I was talking to God. I brushed it off as drug-induced psychosis and went back to doing what I always did. But everything I experienced in that realm wasn't spoken. It was known. There was no voice, no explaining, just pure telepathy, innate knowing. I wasn't using my earth brain. I had access to universal understanding, no doubt, no confusion, just truth. I knew the beings of light were in charge. I didn't have to ask who they were. I just understood. They were my counsel, not some universal board for everyone. Mine. They knew me. They teased me. They said things like, you say this every time you come back. There was a closeness, a warmth, even humor. I could feel my father's essence with me. Not just him, but all the masculine energy from the men in my family who had passed on. It was like they merged into one divine, masculine force. Even a boyfriend of mine who had died years earlier was there, part of that same presence. That's how it works there. Individual identities blend into a unified voice of love, wisdom, and support. It's hard to explain in earth terms. Here, we separate everything. Names, faces, roles. But on the other side, there's a oneness, a law of unity. Everything really is one. And yeah, when I came back down, it was rough. My first thought was, that was wild. I must have been so high, I thought I was talking to God. I brushed it off as a trip, something I couldn't wrap my head around yet. And I went right back to what I always did. I even posted on Instagram. Guys, I just died. It was crazy. I still have the video. I looked a mess. But I genuinely thought it was just drug-induced psychosis. I'd never even heard of a spiritual awakening. I couldn't pronounce Kundalini. That was the start of everything shifting. I went with him to the meeting. The next day, I went to another. Back then, I was a shell, missing teeth, frail, grey, with open wounds on my skin. That day, I walked into a women's meeting, and a woman came straight to me and hugged me. Really hugged me. I hadn't been touched with love in a long time. She leaned in and whispered, "You are worthy of all the love in the universe." And I broke. I melted into her arms and sobbed. It was the first time I felt, maybe, just maybe, I could be more than what I had become. The next day, I went to another meeting. This one was packed, and every person who spoke, it felt like they were speaking directly to me, like God was using their voices. That's when I saw her. the program director of a women's recovery facility. I knew I had to ask for help, but my ego screamed, "You don't need anyone." When I finally got up the courage, she was gone. I walked to the bus, crushed, and there she was, sitting right there. I ran to her. "Please, I need help." She said, "We have a bed. Come tomorrow." That sentence changed my life. I went with nothing but the clothes on my back, left everything behind. That was the start of my real spiritual journey. I spent 17 months in that all-women's treatment facility. It was tough, but exactly what I needed. No internet, no phones, just books, deep healing work, and reflection. I began to see myself clearly. My patterns, my wounds, my defenses. After my awakening, I came back with abilities. I could see energy, taste music, feel emotions in color. I once told a stranger, "Your husband's gay and lying to you." Not the best delivery. I had no filter. Eventually, I asked for the intensity of the gifts to be dialed down. I wanted to be human again, and they softened. Now, they show up in more grounded ways. I build community. I manifest. I help people realize how powerful they really are. That's my calling. My story has taken time to integrate. Years. It wasn't until I watched Surviving Death on Netflix that I realized that's what happened to me. That's how I found IANs. I joined their groups. I listened. I learned the language. I found community. It gave me peace. At first, I thought the goal was to get back to heaven. But eventually, I understood. It's not about going back to heaven. It's about bringing heaven here. And every day, I get to do that. In connection, in love, in service. That is heaven to me now. And if you're losing someone, or facing death yourself, please hear me. There is nothing to fear. Heaven is real, and it's home. When I crossed over, the love I felt was beyond words. Total wholeness, total peace. If I made it there, everyone is making it. I promise. But it doesn't mean that we skip Earth School. You can't drop out and get your soul diploma. You came here to grow. Earth is the Ivy League of soul schools. It's intense, but it's also sacred. Grief doesn't end connection. If you've lost someone, ask. Ask the universe for a sign. My dad, he's still with me, you know. He's my #1 spirit guide. After my awakening, I questioned my sanity. I remember saying, "Dad, if this is real, send me a sign." I thought of a fox. Next day, I'm in TJ Maxx and I look up. There on a shelf is a book titled Amazing Dads with a daddy fox and baby fox on the cover. I whispered, "Thanks, Dad." So if you're grieving, ask. The signs will come. And when they do, it'll feel like coming home. What does a fulfilled life look like? To me, it's feeling it all. Happiness, heartbreak, and the beautiful chaos in between. And serving others through it all. That's my new addiction. Giving without expecting. And service doesn't have to be huge. Sometimes it's holding a door, smiling at someone, letting yourself be seen. If I could speak to little Betty, I'd kneel down and say, "Hold on, girl. It's going to get really bad, but then it's going to get really beautiful. You are worthy of all the love in the universe." What is God? Not a man in the sky, not a gender. God is a feeling, a frequency, that moment of peace, of safety, of remembering. And love? Real love? It's not earned. It just is. It's not a prize. It's not conditional. It's the truth you forgot and the truth you'll return to. the purpose of life, to experience all of it, to forget who you are so you can remember. That remembering, that sacred return to self, that is where the bliss lives. So if you're going through it, please don't do it alone. Find your people, your tribe, your soul pod. And please, for the love of all things holy, stop watching the news. If something's important, it'll find you. Don't trade your peace for panic. Stay present, right here, right now. This is where the magic happens. And yes, there is life after life. And it's glorious. But Earth is where we become. We break, we rise, we forget, we remember. And if I made it through the fire, you can too. You are deserving of all the love the universe has to offer. You always have been. You always will be. Thank you for staying until the end of the narration. For more information, check out the description below for Betty Guadagno's socials. If you have enjoyed today's video, please give me a thumbs up. Until next time, take care.